Welcome to lesson number 11 of math. This lesson involves signed numbers, positives and negatives. There are rules for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of signed numbers. I have simplified these rules as much as possible so they are easy to understand, easy to use, and easy to memorize. Because when you take an official test, you can't have any notes with you. So everything has to be up here by that time. The rules for addition of signed numbers are these. If the signs are alike, add and keep that sign. We'll look at that one first. Now, if you want to make sense of signed numbers, you can draw yourself a number line. So to the right would be +1, +2, +3, and so on, as far as you want to go. And to the left would be -1, -2, -3, and so on. And then when you work a problem like this, you can go to your number line that you have created and do what it says. You know, like 3 in this direction, and then 5 in that direction. And you land on the number that you got when you worked it. That's the meaning of it. A whole lot of people can get the right answer for problems for which they have no understanding of the meaning, but they can still get the right answer. If you can understand it, you're way ahead, especially when you work word problems. So let's work an example for this. Signs alike, keep that sign. We'll say we have -7 plus -3. 7 and 3 are 10, we keep the sign. -10 would be the answer. Now the only other thing the signs can be is different. So when the signs are different, we subtract the little one from the big one and use the sign of the big one. Now the difficulty here is getting used to the fact that this is a rule for addition of signed numbers, and the rule says subtract. So you just accept it and you'll get the right answer. So for an example for this one, let's say we have -8 and +3. -8 plus +3 equals what? The rule says subtract the little one, the little number, from the big number and use the sign of the big number. 8 minus 3 is 5. The sign of the big one was negative. Therefore, we have -5. So you want to write down the rules, these rules. If the signs are alike, keep that sign. If the signs are different, subtract the little one from the big one and use the sign of the big one. The words are helpful, but the examples you write are the most helpful. Let's do one more example of each type. First of all, addition. +4 plus +3, this is just 4 plus 3. And that answer will be +7, but when it's positive, we do not have to write the positive sign, because all numbers are positive unless they have a negative sign. So that's a second example for you of adding when the signs are alike. And here's a second example of when the signs are not alike. Positive 8 plus negative 5 equals what? The rule says subtract the little one from the big one and use the sign of the big one. 8 minus 5 is 3. Sign of the big one is positive. Therefore, the answer is 3. It is positive 3, but we don't need to add the sign for positive. We do need to put the sign for negative whenever we have a negative answer. These are the rules for addition. We will refer to these rules when we do subtraction now. The rule for subtraction is right here, and I'll get these examples out of the way. Subtraction is the most difficult for all students. These are the rules. Rule number 1, change the subtraction sign to an addition sign. Now right away we've made it an addition problem. Rule number 2, change the sign of the number being subtracted. That's always the one on the right. We change it to the opposite. Rule number 3, use the rules for addition. So we come over here to these rules, and that's the way we subtract. And you have to do all 3 of these rules for every subtraction problem. So let's look at an example. Negative 9 minus negative 5 equals what? Rule number 1, we change subtraction to addition. And it's best to use a dotted line so you can tell later on if you're reviewing that it did start out as subtraction and you changed it. Now we've changed subtraction to addition. I used 3 dots above and 3 dots below. You could use 2. Do not use 1 dot above and 1 dot below because that's the sign for division. So this shows we changed it from subtraction to addition. Rule number 2, change the sign of the one being subtracted, which is always the one on the left. This is negative. We will change it to positive. And we'll show ourselves that we did know what we were doing, and we changed it. Rule number 3, use the rules for addition. So we look to see what we have now. That's negative, and that's positive. Therefore, that's rule number 2 for addition, where we will subtract the little one from the big one and use the sign of the big one. 9 minus 5 is 4, and the sign of the big one is negative, so we do write it, and that is negative 4. Okay? One more example. Let's say positive 10 plus positive 3. Rule number 1. This is subtraction, of course. Rule number 1, change the subtraction sign to addition. Rule number 2, change the sign of the one being subtracted. It is positive now, I'll just scratch it out, put a negative above there. Rule number 3, go to the rules for addition. Since the signs are now not alike, that makes it rule number 2 for addition. Subtract the little one from the big one, which will be 7. And the sign of the big one is positive, so that answer is 7. Subtraction, all of these take a lot of practice. So with practice, you'll get very good at signed numbers. You'll be happy to know that the easiest signed numbers to work are multiplication and division, because the rules are the same for both multiplication and division, and the rules are simple to understand. Rule number one, if the signs are alike, the answer is positive. Doesn't matter whether the signs are positive or negative. If the signs are alike, the answer is positive. Let's look at that now. Here's one for multiplication. And you remember from when we did geometry, we said when there's nothing in between, it always means multiply. So we're going to multiply this times that. Negative 4 times negative 2. 4 times 2 is 8. The signs are alike, therefore it's positive 8. Just like that. We need a little more room to do some more examples. Let's say we have positive 9 divided by positive 3. Nine divided by 3 is 3. They are alike, therefore that answer is 3, positive 3. If the signs are not alike, the answers are negative. So here's an example. Sometimes you may have an exercise or even a test where the parentheses like this are not included. That makes it more difficult a little bit, but you still use the same rules for signed numbers, and you still get the right answer. So we'll use, first we'll do a multiplication problem, and that'll be, say, negative 5 times positive 4. Negative 5 times positive 4. 5 times 4 is 20. The signs are not alike, therefore it's negative 20. And one final example. Let's do one for division. Let's say positive 15 divided by negative 3. 15 divided by 3, of course, is 5. Signs are not alike, therefore negative 5. You will probably not be doing problems with signed numbers in isolation. You will be doing signed numbers at the same time as you're using exponents, order of operations, and they'll be part of an algebra problem, not just by themselves, usually. So you need to know the rules, you need to be good at applying them and using them at the same time you're using other rules. And if you can do that, that's the first step toward what you might call pre-algebra, or what you might call algebra. There's a whole lot more to algebra than is needed for high school equivalency success. So expect that if you go on to take college algebra later on, you'll be doing a lot more than you're doing with the algebra that we will do here. And that concludes our lesson for signed numbers.